Hello, I am RedactedNPC, and for the first and hopefully only time, I feel the need to offer a content warning for my episode breakdown. If you are someone who is bothered by the topics of depression, suicide, or childhood trauma, I would advise that you skip this episode breakdown and the following episode breakdown, number 103, Gohan speedruns the Namek Saga. I thought about several different ways of starting the opening for this. I've thought about subtle ways of saying the thing that I want to talk about. I thought about making an analogy through a long story. I thought about trying to make animations, but I decided that I would just go ahead and talk a little bit. I made this episode because I was in a very awful place emotionally, financially, mentally, in spite of making number 100. As I said, I made number 100 to try and improve my mood, but my personal problems didn't improve. And so I didn't improve. And those personal problems still continue to this day. I won't be going into detail, but I had a very terrible childhood and adolescence. I didn't have anyone to talk to about this because in my culture, and specifically the way I was raised, men don't share emotion at all. If you're happy, you need to calm down. If you're sad, you need to stop being a sissy. If you're angry, that's an acceptable emotion, but don't be too angry because then that's also irritating. In general, speaking about your problems, especially your family's problems, are frowned upon. Instead, you hide as best you can whatever's going on with your family. Now, in saying that, many of you who are raised from a Western point of view may say, no, it's okay for men to have emotions. That's very toxic masculinity focused to say that men can't have emotions. And the way that I've had to explain this to friends is as such. Many of my friends in vet school had imposter syndrome and still have it, meaning that no matter how good they are, they still doubt themselves and think that they aren't worthy of any praise, they aren't worthy of any recognition because they are an imposter. They are somehow tricking people into thinking that they're a better person than they are. For these people, if you go up to them and you say, you're a great person. What are you talking about? Here's proof. Look, you remember that time you helped me with my car? So you're a great person. Stop having imposter syndrome. That's not going to fix the problem, is it? For people who feel like they are woefully stupid because they do poorly on exams occasionally or they don't immediately understand something. I've had a lot of people like that in vet school who refuse to acknowledge that they are smart. And you don't get into vet school and complete vet school while being stupid. But they refuse to believe that they were smart because every now and again, well, they failed this exam or they made a C in this class, which, by the way, side note, in order to pass vet school, you only need to make 70%. You need to make a C in all your classes, or most of them anyway. You can have a few D's or one F. And in order to become a licensed veterinarian, to be able to practice in North America, you only have to make 55% on the licensing exam. In fact, it might be a little bit lower. It might be 52%. The reason being because they recognize that the exam is very difficult and that you don't actually need to have all the knowledge that they put on the exam in order to be a good vet. You might question what's the point in making the exam that difficult if you are going to set the pass rates or you're going to set the passing grade to only 52%, but that's a different discussion. The point is, I'm sure many of you know someone or even might be someone who thinks that you're stupid in spite of all your achievements. To those people, if you go up to them and you say, well, you're smart, so get over it. There's nothing wrong with the fact that you're smart and you just need to accept that. That's not going to fix the problem, is it? It's the same with people who are raised in a culture similar to mine. If you just go up to them and you get angry and say, you're allowed to show your emotions, there's nothing wrong with showing emotions, or even if you just tell them a few times, there's nothing wrong with showing emotions, that's okay. That's not going to fix the problem immediately. Not only that, not only was I raised for at least 18 years, everyone around me was telling me that I shouldn't show emotion because I'm a man, I need to be strong and stoic. But even now, there are still a lot of people who tell me that I need to be a man and strong. It's usually from women is who I hear from if someone's going to say it, but regardless, about half the people that I talk to will say that I need to be strong, and the other half will say it's okay to show emotion. So it's not a clear-cut, easy thing to do. Even talking about the little amount that I'm going to be talking about today makes me uncomfortable. I feel as if I'm doing something terribly wrong, like if I were holding an electric plug and it was wet and I was about to plug it in. And I get that strong feeling that says, no, stop, you shouldn't be doing this, that's dangerous. That's the same feeling that I get. So not only that, but I didn't have anyone who has been through all the same things that I've been through, or to the same level that I've been through. If I were to make a book and I made a character that has suffered as much as I have, and I were to then read that book, I would say it's too over the top, it's unnecessary, it's excessive, it's edgy. There's no reason to go through all that suffering, especially because I I'm not any better for it. I'm not stronger. I'm not smarter. There are still people who don't go through any of these struggles, and they are smarter than me. They're better than me. They're more charismatic than me. They're better video editors than me. They play piano better than me. They're better cooks than me. They're happier than I am. You might make the argument that perhaps I can tolerate trauma better than those people, but that's not exactly something to be proud of. That's not something that I want to brag about. Yeah, I can take a beating and suffer so much better than other people. I'm not happy about that. So, even if I wanted to talk, I don't have anyone who has suffered as much as me. So I decided to make someone who can relate to some of the trauma that I've been through. Trunks is meant to reflect me, in a sense. His suffering is obviously worse than mine, as I've never had to kill anyone, especially anyone that I've loved. But he's going through things and he's going through them in a similar way that I did. And at the end, my thought was I would make it so that he would still succeed, and in spite of what he's been through, he would still be able to find happiness again. And if I can see that he has gone through something that I wholeheartedly believe is worse than what I've gone through, then maybe that will make me feel better. Maybe I'll see that, yeah, it is awful. There are a lot of terrible things that happen in life. And here's someone who has been through the same things that I'm going through, and he's still able to get through it. He has also felt that desire not to do something, not to act, but to know that if he doesn't act, things won't get better for himself or for others. And it's not like he's to blame for what's happened. He was born into this world, into this twisted world where most of the people he loves are dead. Things are perpetually awful. There's no hope in sight for things to get better. And there's so much on his shoulders. There's so much that relies on him. The weight must be crippling. I'm sure he can't take a step forward occasionally because there's just too much for him to have to deal with. That's why I made this episode. I used the music that I did, the song from Euphoria, because I was watching Euphoria at that time and I really liked the song. When I was making this, I really didn't want to have to reuse any parts of Super that I've already used, so I tried to make some or use some new ones. So I decided to have everyone under the gazebo. Finally, the thumbnail is this image of Trunks afterwards. I felt like it made him look a little distraught. His eyes were a little bit empty, but I don't know. The title is The Time Traveler's Punishment because I made this in maybe a day or two, so I didn't actually take some time to think it out like how I normally do. Normally, when I make my videos, I've had the script written, quote unquote, in my head for several months, if not a few years. So I've had time to think about the title, the visuals, the music, when certain things will play on screen, as opposed to when the music is playing. The tone that characters will speak in, the overall diction and storytelling, all of that is usually well planned out ahead of time. This, as far as that goes, was a lot more rushed. I didn't sit down and really think about this is how things should go. This is what the title should be. This is what the thumbnail should be. I just needed to make something to make me feel better. So let's go ahead and get started.
その間に父さんたちと過去に帰って
あんなこと言われたまんまでいいんか
あと一歩のところで取り逃がしましたが
In the last episode breakdown, I talked about how I don't like this excuse that I used. Again, this was more or less rushed, but this was used here and in Goku speedruns, and I just feel like it's lazy writing. If I could, I would remaster this.
この手口は間違い
I also, and I'll talk about that more later, but I also decided to have Krillin be the Nidus, which ruins every timeline because people always complain about him not using Solar Flare and Destructo Disc to end every single conflict. I thought it'd be funny too if everything could be solved by him, because if Goku could fix or destroy every timeline by being too strong, then that's okay, but when it's Krillin, someone who's been relegated to the back, he's a background character almost, then it's a lot funnier.
違いありません今俺の追っている奴らが裏で糸を引いてるんだと思います別の歴史から悪人たちを呼び寄せこの時代にも
That swipe effect, that swipe visual effect here, is something that I made using After Effects. It was yellow in the original, but ever since I updated my After Effects to 2024, some of the things that I have disappeared. Anyway, I was trying to make this more animated. I wanted it to look in line with this art style, but I don't really feel like it looks all that great. The only reason that I kept it is because I had spent 30 minutes or so watching a video learning how to make this and trying to make it. And at that point, it was the sunk cost fallacy. I didn't want to throw it away because I'd worked so hard on it.
この時代にも父さんたちの時代にも混乱を引き起こそうとしているんですいませんでしたよね
For the music we have from Halo 3, I love choirs. I've talked about it ad nauseum in the past. But I love choirs and I love this song from Halo 3. The reason that I use this is something that we will discuss around the 2-minute mark or so, the 3-minute mark, when we see Beerus. Originally, this wasn't added. The only music was All For Us from Euphoria, but I went back and added this. Again, we'll talk about it in a moment. I started using the original uncut Dragon Ball Z because it has a lot more filler, a lot more material for me to use, a lot more content. And I really liked this transition of Vegeta where it's a black screen that then goes into his hair, his widow's peak, and his face. I think it's very well done, and I wish I could see more things like that in future episodes.
あいつらを倒す方法を この人たちも組手がしたいのか。一度にこんなにたくさん相手ができるなんて。今俺の追っているやつらが裏で糸を引いてるんだと思います。
First off, I love the sound effect that I applied to 19 here made me laugh when I was making it. The second thing is that I needed to think of a good consequence to every good thing. The whole point of this is that while something initially looks good, you need to recognize that there are consequences to that, bad consequences to that. So I feel like I did a pretty good job with the first one, the first two. Krillin killing Nappa stopped everyone else from getting hurt even more, but it also made Vegeta just kill everyone and then disappear. Krillin surviving against Frieza and killing Frieza stopped him from dying and stopped Frieza in his tracks. He doesn't come back to Earth. Well, I guess he still would, because they would probably find his body and revive him. Anyway, that stops him from getting hurt, but that means that nobody turns Super Saiyan because Goku never turned Super Saiyan, so future threats are still stronger. However, for the upcoming one, I made a mistake in making this. Let's take a look.
別の歴史から悪人たちを呼び寄せ混乱を引き起こそうとしているんです。あと一歩のところで取り逃がしましたが、この手口は間違いありません。
So, the reason that this is a mess up is because realistically, I don't think if Krillin cut off Cell's head, that it would actually kill Cell. We've seen he has amazing regeneration in his perfect form, and that he is able to regenerate from just as simple as a single cell surviving. I don't know, an argument could be made that imperfect Cell doesn't have as strong of regeneration, but I don't know that this would actually be effective. The reason this was added is because, we'll go ahead and take a guess. There are typically 3 reasons why I changed something or didn't add something. It's either time constraints, I was getting burnt out, or the reason, which is I forgot. That's correct, I forgot. So originally I was going to have Krillin blow up 18 using a remote, but I didn't add it because I couldn't remember what I was supposed to add there, and I didn't feel like waiting any longer. I want to say I made this all in a single day and in a single stream, but I honestly don't remember. The VOD is on my VOD's channel if you want to go and try and take a look for that. But I decided that the consequence to this would be that Goku doesn't learn fusion, which, well, we'll see.
あなたの実力についてもお二人からよく聞いてます。特別任務も次々こなしてくれているって老海王神様も褒めてましたよ。
さて、ビルス様がそろそろ起きてしまいますから、私は戻りますね。
新人さんの中でもとても優秀。
So for this, I don't actually show Trunks talking because I didn't have any more new clips of him talking underneath the gazebo. The only clips that were available were either Trunks crying, holding his mom, a lot of different things like that. So I decided not to show him. I just will focus on Whis. But Trunks has been through a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. And in spite of that, he has persevered. He is seen as the only person that can fix all the terrible things that have happened in his life and the life of those around him. But no matter how bad things get, he keeps going. That doesn't mean that it doesn't affect him as well. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have self-doubt, that he doesn't have his own problems that occur with trying to fix everyone else's problems. Even Atlas struggles to carry the weight of the world, and Trunks is no god. Here, after going through so much alone, he's finally ready to reach out and ask for help.
優秀だって。老海王神様とあなたにも手助けをお願いすることになったんです。最近また急に歴史の改変が起きるようになって。
I've been trying to make my videos so that even people who haven't watched Dragon Ball can still enjoy them. I did this because when I was streaming, there was someone who joined. I was streaming myself making this, and there was someone who joined who had never watched Dragon Ball but was interested in what I was doing. So I figured let me go ahead and try and make it so that anyone can watch. At the same time, I did want to have foreshadowing for the people who do know. So you might notice this color palette, you might notice the rain, the fact that everything is destroyed, and this should be your first hint of, oh, that's where this is going. There's something that happens in the future where he has to kill Gohan. This is supposed to be the first instance where people who know Dragon Ball can start to catch on.
よし、おめえの底力見せ
手が
てやれ。
足りなくなってしまったので
I had Trunks deny Goku here because Goku's the main character, and it would be nice to focus on some side characters. Additionally, he doesn't want Goku, Krillin, Piccolo, anyone else who knows Gohan to help because he's going to have to kill Gohan. He's asking for help because he doesn't want to have to kill Gohan. So the only person who doesn't have a close connection with Gohan is Vegeta. Now you might say, well, what about the androids? 18 or 17 could do it, but it'd be really painful for him to ask 18 and 17 to go back and kill Gohan. It just, especially since that's how it happens in his timeline. The original androids of that time go and kill Gohan and almost kill him. I also figure he probably has a very tense relationship with her. He may understand that this 18 is different than the 18 of his timeline, or rather she became different, but the problem is she was still on track to become the monster that she is in his timeline. It's only because of his interference that she became a better person. Regardless, that's still not something that he can forget, that she in his timeline killed Gohan and he had to kill her. That the she of his timeline caused so much destruction and chaos. That's not something that you easily forget.
今まで巻物を使った特別任務は全て俺たちがやっていたんですが
その高々とした鼻に絶対デコ
I recognize that it's in Dragon Ball's humor to make Beerus, the god of destruction, a non-threat and a joke, but I really wish he was respected more given his job, especially because he says that one of the biggest things he doesn't like is when he's disrespected. So here, Trunks is disrespecting him by ignoring his orders. Not only that,
デコピンしてお前らの自信を粉々には
Trunks interrupts him, ignores him, and isn't focused on him. He's still asking his dad for help. Here, I made it look like Trunks was bowing, but in truth, this was actually... Oh, this is frozen. In truth, this is after he had tried to punch Goku, and then Bulma had slapped him over the head and told him to knock it off.
僕も混ぜて欲しいんだけどいいかな楽しそうなことをしているね
破壊神相手にその偉そうな口調
元気でなトランクス
Here, Trunks here is disobeying because even though he knows he isn't allowed to travel through time, he can't not help. It might not be his fault, and it might not technically be his problem in some ways, but he can't not help. It's like when you're walking and you see some trash on the ground and the trash can is right there. Like, yeah, it's not your fault, you didn't cause it, and it's not your mess to clean up, but it's within your ability to do the right thing. And to not do the right thing would make you feel guilty, maybe even like a bad person. So here, Trunks is ready to fight because Beerus says he's going to destroy the time machine, even though he has no chance of winning. He knows that, Beerus knows that, and most importantly, Vegeta knows that. I was wanting the audience to say that Vegeta isn't saying he doesn't want to help because of Saiyan culture, because he sees his son as weak for asking for help or anything like that. And Beerus might think that, but the truth is Vegeta here is he's not saying go away because he's being commanded to. He's saying go away to protect Trunks. And that's why he says not to come back.
トランクス、いいだろう。普通の戦い方をしていては。
So this sound effect here, I added this because it was too quiet with just the voice lines and I needed something to fill that space, but I didn't want the birds chirping and everything like that. But when I heard this, it made me think of Dread Intrusions from Halo. So that's when I went back and I added the music to all the previous videos, the previous parts of the videos. Also notice that here,
いいだろう。普通の戦い方をしていては。
Trunks acknowledges that he needs help, and he asks for help. And when he's rejected, he doesn't cry, he doesn't scream, he doesn't get angry. It's a silent acknowledgement that he's going to have to take care of things, just as he always has. He knows that complaining won't change anything, so rather than dilly-dallying any longer, rather than saying, it's not fair, I'm being put up to do all these things, and why can't you guys take some of the pressure off me? That's not going to change anything. So instead, he immediately gets up and he goes to fix things. Because that's what he's known for in the fan base. That's part of why I made this. Trunks is known as a fixer. You can give him whatever problem and he's on top of things. He gets things done. So I wanted to show what it feels like to be the person who gets things done. I got very lucky with this clip and the clips going forward. I don't have any sound effects that can perfectly replicate the time machine. I can try and add some things, but I ended up not having to because this section is just straight up from the episode. I was fortunate in that there was no music, so I just plugged it right in. I was worried that I was going to have to try and find sound effects for this and the spinning and the blasting and everything like that. Again, Vegeta is watching here because he does care about his son. I know that the Vegeta in Z and Super actually does care about his son, but when all you ever do is yell and get angry and you don't, the only time that he showed not remorse, but a positive emotion about Trunks is when Trunks was killed. And I feel like that's too late to show emotion. Not only that, the only other time he showed a positive emotion towards Trunks, Kid Trunks, is when Vegeta was about to sacrifice himself to try and kill Majin Buu. Again, I feel like those are far too late to be showing emotion. It's fine to be the tough, strong type, the quiet type, but you need to also show a positive emotion. So I decided to add this. I felt like this is a good example of how that's done. It's not that Vegeta is being mean or angry, and that's specifically why I chose this tone for him, as opposed to, you see it says Vegeta calm, as opposed to his usual angry. He didn't yell, Trunks, get out of here, go home. That would have been in line with what I was saying, where he just always seems angry, even though he is, in fact, trying to take care of his son. But here it's just a very calm, go home, Trunks, and don't come back. Here I used Gohan's voice before actually showing him, because if anyone didn't understand the foreshadowing from earlier, this is your next opportunity to understand what's happening. I also, well, let me play it and you'll see.
頼もしいな。もう先のことを考えてくれてるんだね。張り切ってるな。君も頑張ってくれよ。
I also didn't show Trunks when he was actually getting out of the time machine because this is actually from Z, where Trunks' hair is purple. Now, it's easy to see there. It's kind of difficult to tell in some of these shots, but his entire outfit is also different. So I cut it at the frame just before we actually see Trunks. The second thing to point out, Gohan is saying, "Whoa, your energy's intense. Feels like you're ready for a fight." Gohan doesn't know what's about to happen, but we, the audience, know. Trunks is ready for a fight because he's here to kill Gohan, and he's doing his best to psych himself up and get ready for this. But the Gohan thinks, Trunks came back from the future, having trained more and being able to go Super Saiyan to help fight the androids. I will do my best to edit this to show what my thought process was when I was making this, but I can't make any promises that the art is going to be very good. Redacted Editor here, just wanted to jump in really quickly and say this stupid promise I made has taken me a week to draw all these images. Now, you're going to see these images and you're going to think, wow, that art isn't that bad. Like, yeah, you're an amateur, but that's not all that terrible. That's not the art that I drew. That is something that I traced. So the issue is that to be able to draw to the level of quality that I'm looking for in this video, I would have to practice drawing probably every day for several months, if not years. That's not something that I currently have the patience for. But what I do have the patience for is learning how to model things in Blender and then tracing them. So that's what I did. It took me about 2 hours to model these characters in Blender and about another hour of practice to learn how to position them in a position where I can just trace over them. Mind you, I have no experience in Blender prior to this, so it took quite a bit of learning to get down, but I'm pretty happy with the results.
君も頑張ってくれよ。きっと大丈夫だよ。賑やかになるって喜んでくれるさ。
There was a lot of dialogue that I wanted to add that I ended up having to cut because the music wasn't long enough to add all the things that I wanted to say, but the conversation before Trunks attacking Gohan was about twice as long. For this, I needed to think of a way to make Gohan win without him having won yet. Because if he's already defeated the androids, then that ruins the timeline. The whole reason that Trunks goes back in time is because Gohan gets killed and the androids are still a threat. If I make it where Gohan kills one of the androids and then he and Trunks are able to fight the other one, that ruins the timeline. If I have Gohan somehow get a crit strike and he cripples one of the androids so that their next encounter he's able to defeat them, that just seems kind of like lazy writing. Oh yeah, he just happened to get lucky in this timeline, as opposed to all the other timelines where something definitively happened. It's not just a luck-based thing, but it's they did something to make it that way. A different choice was made. I say that, but the solution I had for how to make Gohan win without making him win right now is still luck-based, but we'll see that in a moment. Also, I was very fortunate earlier that the time machine in Z from Trunks coming back also didn't have, well, it had some music, but it cut out at the part where I actually started showing the clip. Finally, before we go forward, I thought about trying to think of what happens if Gohan does kill the androids. And I thought, well, I guess with the pressure of the androids, Bulma never has that epiphany necessary to complete the time machine. Or maybe Trunks never goes Super Saiyan, so even if he does go back in time, it's difficult for him to be of great help to them. But ultimately, I decided not to voice it because I couldn't really think of anything that was satisfying, but I also don't really have to.
君のことも紹介しないといけないしね。よければこれからもこの世界を守るために君の力を貸してくれないか。これ以上は助けられた俺が言うことじゃないな。
Here, I don't have a lot of adult Gohan lines, but I feel like if I were to remaster this, I should go back and add an extra line to fill out that subtitle a little bit more, because otherwise you just have this. It just seems wrong. Something else I'll point out is that the sound effects up until the music cuts in is the actual sound effect from this scene. People shouting, "Daskete, save me." And then it fades out and we get the music cut in.
トランクス、来るなと言ったろう。どうして来てしまったんだ。
Essentially, I was imagining during all this where Trunks, I know how you feel. Here, Trunks is crying because he knows what needs to be done. He knows he needs to kill Gohan. And so he starts crying. Gohan, again, doesn't understand what's going on. He thinks Trunks is crying because they're finally about to kill the androids and save the world. So he reaches out with his left arm. He taps Gohan and says, "Hey, it's okay." And speaking of which, I tried to make it so that whenever we see Gohan, you see him with both of his arms, but the only clips where we see his body and he's smiling and he's happy doesn't really match the scene. So there are clips of Gohan being happy when he's eating rice or he's with Bulma or they're indoors. There are clips of Gohan with his full body, but he's getting ready to fight the androids. He doesn't look happy, he looks angry. This was the only clip that I had. I also tried to make it obvious that he doesn't have his scar just yet and that he's completely fresh and clean. The point is, he hasn't been hurt by the androids at all up to this point. As I said in the comment for this video, I took a less is more approach for the entire video. So I thought about adding a crying sound effects for Trunks, but I decided not to add it because, again, he's very stoic. He doesn't shout about the injustice of it all. Also, human imagination is a very powerful thing. So I decided to use your brain to work to my advantage. Rather than having... I thought about having Gohan standing over here, and again, I'll draw this, but Gohan standing over here after he taps Trunks, and the whole point of him tapping with the left arm is that his left arm gets cut off by the androids. I think it's the left and not the right arm. But his arm gets cut off by the androids, so when he taps Gohan, it shows to the audience, again, that Gohan losing his arm wasn't from the androids, it was from Trunks and his sword. That scar, it was too clean a cut. That wasn't from the androids, that was from Trunks' sword. Here, I thought about having Gohan stand over here to the right, and then when Trunks draws his sword, which the sound effect is right here, when Trunks, or no, yeah, it's right here. When Trunks draws his sword, having the sword come into view, and then we see Trunks dashing forward and about to cut Gohan. And Gohan is turning around and he's surprised and he goes, "What?" But I could have cut that out of a future episode, a different episode, but there weren't any episodes that looked good for that. I also, when we get to this part, thought about having, when we get to this part, I thought about having, there's a building here, there's Trunks walking through the alley. In fact, here, I thought about having a building and we would see future Super Trunks over here, watching to make sure that the timeline goes correctly, or crying, or something. But again, I don't have very good clips of that, so I decided to scrap that idea. This is by far my favorite video that I've ever made. It does have some problems, but those are things I can tolerate. I thought about adding a car horn here because in the original it's just a light clicking, but if you haven't watched the original in a while, or if you haven't seen the original in a while, you don't know that. So I thought about having a car alarm going off in the distance, just a brr, brr, while the light is flashing. And for the longest time, that was a big regret of mine. But having gone back and seen the original again more recently, I feel like it's more faithful to the original if I didn't do that. I struggled for a while to find a voice line of Gohan saying Trunks while sounding panicked. Let's see if we can play just that. And here's the full one. But I have it interrupted. I struggled for a while to find that. Gohan yelling Trunks both wakes up the younger Trunks, who was knocked out, but it also indicates that he's surprised about being attacked. Imagine the confusion and pain that he must be feeling as he's killed by his best friend. Great stuff. I also wanted the beat to drop at this specific part. I wanted it to drop with Gohan yelling Trunks and Trunks waking up. So I had to cut out a lot of earlier dialogue.
力を貸してくれないか。これ以上は助けられた俺が言うことじゃないな。トランクス、来るなと言ったろう。どうして来てしまったんだ。そして一人で人造人間と戦った。
You'll notice, so that's all I'm going to play. The rest of this more or less played out how I thought in my head. You'll notice that there are two different rain sound effects throughout the rest of this segment. This is the original, and the reason that I did that instead of just using the rain sound effect that I have is because, which, go ahead and take a listen to how these sound. That's the original versus. The reason that I allow the original to stay is because when Trunks finds Gohan here, I wanted to have his huh sound. And at this time, I didn't have a lot of sound clips for Trunks. You'll also notice in this upcoming part that the music changes with the background music. The visuals change on beat with the background music. So here, you hear the drum, 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 2, 3, 4, change, 2, 3, 4, change. I did that throughout the rest of this. It's nothing new. I've done that before, but I just very much like how this song plays well with the sad nature of what's going on, because that's what I was feeling when I was thinking or listening to this song. Is it made me feel very sad, like, especially with the lyrics. We'll go over the lyrics in a moment, but this is a song about having to do things even if you don't want to. That's how I interpret it anyway. Two things. So first off, I debated which scenes to add here while we're waiting, because there's suspense. At this point, you should know that future Super Trunks killed Gohan to correct the timeline. And I was trying to think of when to show Gohan's body, if at all. Originally, I wasn't going to show it. It was just going to be implied. You would see Trunks' face. You would know that Gohan was dead, but you would never actually see the body. Because again, less is more. You know what's going on. But the reason I end up eventually showing it is because I feel like the impact of actually seeing his dead body just really drives home that yes, Trunks had to do it. The second thing is that I thought about changing the YouTube title because, like I said, I made this in a rush and I didn't think about a good title until after I had already published this. I thought about changing the YouTube title, but this screen was still going to be here. It wouldn't match with the YouTube title. And then I thought about deleting and re-uploading, but it was already gaining some traction, the video. So I said, fine, I'll just leave it. But it's been eating away at me for years. Same thing with this, the car horn not playing. It doesn't bother me anymore, but for a while it was. The last thing that I'll point out before we continue, purple here is supposed to be past Trunks. The blue here is supposed to be future Trunks. You can see, if you look closely in the background, I have 102 very faded because I've been adding the numbers in the background, but in this instance I feel like it was too faded. Even when I watch on YouTube, it's still a little too faded, so I would have liked to have made that a bit more visible. I thought about adding the voice lines during this segment to correspond with what was actually happening in the movie. So in the movie, he's saying, no way, it can't be. It has to be a lie. Gohan? Gohan? I can't believe it. Well, here he says Gohan's name, but he's like, I can't believe it. I thought about adding that, but future Trunks is very stoic. He doesn't want to have to do the things that he does here, but he knows there's no other option, and complaining isn't going to change anything. So this is where it starts. Being silent and just getting the job done starts. It starts with this part. So for that reason, I decided not to add him saying anything. I do kind of wish I had added him saying Gohan here, but overall, I'm still pretty happy with it. As we're going forward, I will talk about the music, the lyrics. So, oh, and I did add some sound effects of someone stepping in water, but it's not too audible here. You kind of have to listen close for it. Anyway, try and listen to the lyrics. I will be talking about them after each part and how it relates to Trunks. So too much in my system doesn't actually apply to him. Famine can be seen as because they're in the future, which is being destroyed, there isn't as much food. It's a lot more difficult to get enough to eat. Okay. Maybe I was wrong. Some of the lyrics don't completely match up with Trunks. Money MIA, pockets hella empty. It could be seen as they don't have a lot of money because here in the future, arguably money no longer matters in a post-apocalyptic world. But I promise the rest of this actually does make sense for Trunks. Except for Mississippi. Here, it can be seen as Bulma. I thought about adding Bulma here, like working and then looking up and being like, I wonder where Trunks and Gohan are. It's about to rain or something like that. But obviously, she's working herself to the bone, trying to get the time machine fixed so that she can have Trunks go to the past and save the world. Something else I think I forgot to mention was Bulma working on the bomb. Working on the remote for the bomb. This is canonical. Dr. Gero had a lab in the mountains and he had a remote to destroy or to detonate the bombs in their chest. So I figured I might as well just use that for them since it's already there. But it's a nice way to bring Bulma into the fold, aside from her just making the time machine. Daddy ain't at home, no. Father, gotta be Here, it's a shame that it says father while looking at Gohan. Gohan is more a brother figure, I feel, to Trunks. But obviously, Daddy ain't at home being Vegeta because he's dead. Gotta be a man because Trunks now has to, the weight of the world rests on his shoulders. With Gohan dead, he is the last person who can realistically fight against the androids. I also thought, like I said, about adding Trunks saying Gohan here, and I thought about here having him scream, but this is back when I didn't have a lot of Trunks voice lines, so I decided to just not have him speak at all. We'll just have the rain. That will be the only sound effect. That and the water as he's walking through it.
Gotta be a man. Like accordion. Do it for my homegrown sisters, brothers. Do it for the fam. Yeah, still I'm loving.
Do it for the homegrown, the fam. Trunks is just fighting for the people who matter to him, like Gohan. And this is when I thought, okay, well, I have 2 good shots of Gohan's dead body. Trunks cradles it in the original, but I felt like it was a lot more impactful to have him just be in the puddle like this still. Trunks is all alone now. The last person who could have made a difference is now dead. Because they are also a victim of this terrible timeline. It wasn't their fault, and they did their best to fix things. And they're dead because of it.
Brothers, do it for the fam. Yeah, still I'm loving. Just for your love, yeah.
Few things. One, I made the rain and the music louder. I feel like maybe a little bit too loud, but I just made it louder because this is the time when emotions are flaring. Here, I cut out the part where we see Trunks gripping his hand so hard that he's bleeding. In the original, the symbolism is that Gohan's blood is on his hands. That because he couldn't turn Super Saiyan, Gohan died. Instead, I moved it over here because yes, Gohan's death is on his hands, but not in the way that he thinks. It's the blood is on his hands because his future self is the one who actually did this. I also thought about having Trunks curse the androids here to really drive home that young Trunks doesn't understand what's going on. He thinks the androids killed Gohan when the fact of the matter is it was him. Here you can see the scars, the battle damage. Future Trunks should be a lot stronger than Gohan. So this battle damage, I think this would only happen if Trunks held back a little bit. Because he really doesn't want to have to kill Gohan, but he knows he has to. If he was able to disconnect himself and just go all in, he probably could have killed Gohan very quickly and painlessly. But because he had that emotional tie to him, he held back a little bit, and Gohan suffered for that. The entire time Gohan was fighting, Trunks, what's going on? Why are you doing this? I don't understand. Trunks, stop, let's speak. That all must have been happening. It's awful. I've done a very terrible thing. And here's the thumbnail. I was very lazy and I just took that screenshot. I thought about having Trunks crying instead, but I wanted that dead eyes look that you see in anime sometimes when a character has suffered a lot. And I felt like this blank stare kind of matched that, kind of got us there. It could indicate that he's feeling empty inside because of what he had to do. And in spite of that, he still, as we're about to see, he still reaches out for Mai's hand because he doesn't want to be left alone with his thoughts. He still needs to be comforted. Mai recognizes he's going through a lot. She doesn't know what to say to make it feel better. He doesn't know what she can do to make it feel better, but he just knows he doesn't want to be alone. So she decides that she'll be here for him. So after this, I cut the music because the music was too hype for the mood we're supposed to be feeling. We're still supposed to be somber. I feel like I should have added a quieter version instead, just to continue having it go, because it's kind of jarring going from music to nothing. It's odd. Anyway, this is a blank space for me to add my, hey, go watch my other videos. And this one and 100, I just have referencing each other back and forth without referencing other videos a little bit, so that you go back and forth. You have this infinite loop of sorrow. You see how much Gohan means to Trunks. That's what it's supposed to be about. So that's it. Thanks for watching the episode breakdown for Future Trunks, the Time Traveler's Punishment. And welcome to Future Trunks, and he died too. That's right, I actually remade this. I have been trying not to remake my videos. Throughout these episode breakdowns, I've been talking about things that could have been done better and changes I could have made, but I want to keep moving forward with my videos rather than just continuously going back and trying to add things and fix my original work. So I will be uploading the remastered version later tonight, and what I'm going to be doing is from now on, instead of uploading these videos Sunday morning, I'm trying to make it where I stream Sunday evenings. So, and I'd like it to be where I stream the episode breakdowns after these get uploaded. So what will happen is, going forward, I will upload the video. After the video is uploaded, I will probably be streaming, and I'll probably be streaming the episode breakdown for that episode. And then the rest of the night, if I decide to continue to stream, I will be streaming whatever I feel like streaming. I might be working on the next project or streaming myself playing games, whatever I feel like. But let's go over some of the changes for this remastered version. So the first thing that I want to point out is the thumbnail is a lot better. I actually commissioned an artist. They have their watermark there, so you can see who they are. You can go contact them. I'll probably add them to the description as well. I added the thumbnail of Trunks being in the Shinji pose. In Neon Genesis Evangelion, Shinji is feeling immeasurable guilt because he just had to kill someone that he loves. And he's telling himself he's a bad person for doing it. That's what's happening when this pose is going on. So I wanted to have Trunks in that pose. I tried drawing it myself and it did not come out good. So instead I commissioned an artist for it. I thought about having Shinji and Rei instead, where Rei is Gohan, Shinji is Trunks, to symbolize that Trunks feels like Gohan is haunting him, even though Gohan obviously wouldn't be, especially if he knew what was going on, why Trunks did it. He wouldn't be upset with Trunks. But I decided to use the thumbnail that I did use instead because Trunks is alone in that one. There's no one else there. It's just him. The second thing is that I changed the title to be a reference to TFS because it sounds better, but it's also, after you've watched the video, if you didn't know what was going on, after you watch the video and you see the thumbnail and the title, then you're like, yeah, so that's why he says that. I thought that he was saying, and then he died too because of, he's just telling a story, but the third thing is that I, as you can see, completely remade this from scratch. After I make the Vegeta speedruns the Boo Saga, I will not be using After Effects as heavily to make my videos anymore. I will be using Premiere Pro because I've known for a while Premiere Pro is the go-to. It's what I should have been using, but I had been using After Effects for several years, and the skills that I've developed, the knowledge that I've developed from using After Effects, I felt would all go to waste if I jumped to Premiere Pro. So every year it's, well, I could go to Premiere Pro, but then I would lose the past 2 years of knowledge. And then it was 3 years of knowledge, and then it was 4 years of knowledge. And finally, what made me decide is I updated my After Effects. It looked a little bit different. It loads better. It loads the things ahead of time. If you're watching this, you probably didn't notice all the times that I cut out when I had to restart because it was playing the video very slowly because it was loading it and playing at the same time. But it's just too much. The time it takes to render things out, the time it takes for things to load, the amount of resources that it consumes, and my computer isn't weak by any stretch of the imagination, but After Effects is just too energy intensive. I have been using scissors to cut the lawn this entire time instead of using lawnmowers. That's not what After Effects is meant for. It's a very precise tool, and it's supposed to be used for smaller projects. So back when I was making like 10, 30-second memes, that was fine. But these longer ones, that's not what it should be used for. So I'm not going to play this entire thing. For the most part, I made all of this by scratch completely. So there are slight variations in how long certain clips play for, when the subtitles appear, how loud the sounds are, but those are inconsequential. I'm just going to be, rather than playing all of this all over again, you can go and watch the released version. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump to the changes, the significant changes from this version as opposed to the original. One of the things is that I changed Trunks from saying dad to father because that's more in line with what he actually says in the dub and sub. The next change is at 10 seconds. I changed Trunks' dialogue here, so shoot, I'm gonna give myself a lot of work. Redacted Editor is gonna have a ton of work, but I'm going to play side by side the original and the edited version so that you can see what's going on.
あと一歩のところで取り逃がしましたが、この手口は間違いありません。今、俺の追っている奴らが。
I changed the dialogue. Like I said, I felt like it was very lazy for me to say that, we had an oopsie poopsie. We didn't know this was going to happen. Instead, the time machine was a prototype and it was causing these problems. Now that we've completed it, we're going back and we're fixing the issues. Next. And in fact, let me make this easier on myself on editing me. So I'm using the audio from the new one. In this one, I removed the animation of Nappa getting his head cut off because, like I said, it wasn't very good anyway. And I only used it because I was like, well, I put in this effort. So instead, I'm digging in deeper to the less is more approach. I'm having your brain fill in the parts of what happened. So here I have the sound effect of Nappa's body hitting the floor after his head gets cut off. I was trying to find a sound effect where the head bounces for a bit, like maybe if someone dropped a potato, but I couldn't find a clear, good quality audio in the few seconds I was searching. You also notice Premiere uses different colors than After Effects by default, which is annoying, but whatever. So all of my text is pink. I've changed my audio. My voice lines will be in this, they call it teal. My sound effects will be, I forgot to change these ones, but my sound effects will be, they call it rose. And then my music will still be in purple. So that's what we have. Going forward. And I forgot this is the wrong color. There we go. I don't care about the rest of those. So I'm not going to fix them. Next. In the original episode, Dragon Ball Z, Frieza is punching Krillin. Krillin uses solar flare, and then he runs off. In my original video, I have this flipped. So let's take a look at this scene in its entirety.
あいつらを倒す方法を。この人たちも組手がしたいのか。一度に。
So, as you saw in the original video, I had Krillin using his left hand because I had switched this. They had Frieza looking to the right, but then Krillin was... This is obviously from earlier in the episode. It's not the same thing. So Krillin was also looking to the right. So they were both facing to the right, which made it seem like they were on the same side. It was just confusing. So in the original, I flipped Krillin so that he was looking to the left. But the problem is that made it look like he was using his left hand. So in this new version, I instead flipped Frieza to be looking to the left so that Krillin can remain right-handed. Very small change, very inconsequential. No one really cares. Probably no one would notice if I hadn't pointed it out, but oh well. Next! I completely changed this scene. I'm not even going to play the original. You saw how it looked before, but now I'll play it, sure. I'll just give myself extra work. Why not? Why not? So in the original, Krillin beheads Cell. This one, I changed it to what it was supposed to be originally. I also added a funny bit. Well, I think it's funny. Because as I was scanning through, I saw Cell shouting in anger, and it just seemed like a great thing to have.
別の歴史から悪人たちを呼び寄せ、混乱を引き起こそうとしているんです。あと一歩のところで取り逃がしましたが、この手口は間違いありません。
So that's that. I will say the way that I made it so that Krillin actually presses the button. In the original, his hands are shaking. I just froze the frames where it looked like he was pressing down, and I had to reorder them. I also added a button clicking sound effect, which took a while to find one that I was okay with. It's still not perfect, but it's acceptable. And then yeah, Cell yelling here while he's shaking his arms furiously, especially with the dialogue. If you listen to how the voice goes like, "Ah!"
この手口は間違いありません。
You hear what I mean? That was funny. Let's see what's next. Here, I changed, I've been through countless stories and fought numerous enemies, to I've corrected more timelines than I can count, just to really focus on the fact that Trunks is going through a lot alone. There's one I can't fix alone. Just to show that he's by himself trying to do all of this.
楽しそうなことをしているね。
破壊神相手にその偉そうな口調。
元気でな、トランクス。いいだろう。普通の戦い方をしていては。
I changed the scene where you actually see Trunks' face because, again, I wanted to be that silent acceptance that you're not getting any help and you're going to have to do this all alone, just like you always have. It lets the audience kind of guess what his emotion is, what his face is looking like, but it also, I just feel, really helps the emotion of being distraught keep going. I replaced here. I replaced Beerus and Whis with Bulma because it feels like it would make more sense to have her rather than Whis and Beerus. But also this one, I don't know, this kind of creeps me out. In the original, Trunks is waving to Bulma or nodding to Bulma. She doesn't react. Vegeta looks at Bulma. She doesn't react. It's just, I don't know, like she's a mannequin. It's just weird. I don't like the way she stares. Next up, I changed Gohan's text color to be orange instead of blue because it's more in line with my modern style. I will say, back when it was blue, when you were looking at the font, the title card, where it said the Time Traveler's Punishment, some people I'm sure might have thought that it was blue for Gohan and purple for Trunks, as opposed to blue for future Trunks and purple for young Trunks. But that's all. Here, I changed I've already won to we've already won because it's a collective thing. Everybody benefits from this. Here, I had this changed. Bulma built a remote that should detonate the bombs just to make it more clear what I was expecting or what I was going for. Here, I added Android because I specifically got this line because he says, he says Jinzo Ningen. He specifically says artificial humans or android as it's translated in the English text. So I added android just because that's what that whole part was for. I also fixed the small delay here. I'll go ahead and play this proper. I fixed the small delay from Gohan saying Trunks and the beat dropping and the scene changing. So let's just watch all of this. The audio I still have cut a little bit, but in fact, let me see. Should I change that? If I have it like that. No, he actually says Trunks there. So I would have to move it, but I don't like when I move it further back. It just doesn't sound right to me. Because I'm so used to it playing at this exact moment. Then I added... I'm going to skip to these really quickly, and then we'll see the comparison of the original versus this version. But I added a bit more text and dialogue for Trunks, like how I said. I didn't add the car horn blaring because, again, I'm trying to be more faithful to the original. And since this is being done in Premiere, the text looks a little bit different. I made 102 stand out a little bit more. When it fades in, I don't know, I feel like it's weird, but it fades in a little bit differently and it zooms into the screen. I don't remember if I added that on the original one. My name here, you can also see my name here. I have it in the primal font that I've started using, and that's throughout the entire episode. And I believe that's everything. So let's go ahead and play the two back to back. Oh, here I also added the music. I have it muffled. I debated between just using the vocals muffled and having the actual song muffled, and I decided to use the actual song muffled because I feel like it goes well with the outro. I think in the future, anytime I have music that plays during the outro, I'm going to have it muffled. So let's go ahead and start from here.
いうことじゃないな。トランクス、来るなと言ったろう。どうして来てしまったんだ。そして一人で人造人間と戦った。
My system, money in my head, pockets hella empty. Mama making ends meet. Working like a slave. Daddy ain't at home, no. Gotta be a man. Do it for my homegrown. Sisters, brothers. Do it for the fam. Still I'm loving.
これ以上人造人間を増やしてたまるか。未来をお前なんかの自由にさせない。
And I'll do 25 tonight if it makes me a king. A star in your eyes.
Okay, so that's that. Some things that I do want to point out, and I already, without even looking at the time, I can already tell this is probably an hour, over an hour. It's definitely going to be the longest one to date, but the next episode breakdown, number 103, will be even longer. So, I made the footsteps a little bit louder. I changed the order in which this color came in because it kind of bothered me. I added Trunks saying Gohan, and I debated on what tone I wanted him to use. This is from Kakarot. I looked through Xenoverse, I looked through the original anime, I looked through Super, and I looked through the original movie. And I decided that the way he says Gohan here, how he sounds very broken, was pretty good. I was also disappointed. Kakarot in Xenoverse, if I lower the background music, when the cutscenes play, the background music is lowered. In Kakarot, it's all one sound. You can't lower just the background music or the sound effects in the cutscenes. So this is from a cutscene, so you heard that there. One other thing to point, I had to slow this clip down a little bit because it didn't last quite long enough, so his voice sounds a little bit deeper than it should. Let me show you what the original sounds like. You see, he isn't screaming right there, as opposed to, I just slowed it down by 5%, as opposed to this. And then the last thing is that Trunks is too calm in the games. Throughout the games, I've been searching and searching. So to clarify, I don't remember if I already said, today is November 23rd. I spent almost all morning and most of the all morning, most of the afternoon making this video. And then I spent basically the rest of the time up until now just looking for audio of Trunks yelling. He barely yells. Either he sounds angry. There are times when he sounds angry, but he doesn't yell, and it doesn't fit this. I've gone through so many different audio pieces, and that's why I didn't add his voice lines in the beginning, in the original. It's because I couldn't find any audio pieces for this. But whenever he gets angry, he goes, "I'm really angry, and I can't believe you did that." But I need him yelling. So I had to go to the anime, and this is from, I think, episode 79 of Kai, where he and Vegeta's like, yeah, so go ahead and get your perfect form. And Trunks is like, no, you can hear him say Mirai. He's talking about the future, like for the sake of the future or something like that. I don't have the subtitles anymore. But he's saying, I won't let you do this. The future will get ruined. It was so difficult. It took me so long because I couldn't find one where he's consistently yelling. He's just always, I'm angry and I can't believe it. How could you do this? Everyone's dead. But nothing like this where he's yelling his lungs out. And then I just added more of that. Also, I'm debating if I should go through and have the music here also be muffled. Let's see what that would sound like if I had the music muffled at this point. Okay, so I think it does still... I think it sounds better with the music unmuffled. Maybe if I could have had him looking sad, I would have had muffled music. And if it only played for a little bit. But I think having the music at full force and then having it only... It makes sense for it to be muffled here. It doesn't really make as much sense for it to be muffled there, to me. So I think this is better. Anyway, I'm basically just making this because I watch this video all the time and I just wanted to have Trunks yelling. Like I said, in 10 hours from the time I post this, I will be posting in 10 hours from when I post this episode breakdown, I will be posting this. And you can go and watch it. And then check my Twitch. I might be streaming at that time. That is about 2.5, almost 3 weeks from now. So it's too early for me to say how I'll be feeling, if I'll have the energy to do so or not. In fact, I don't know when I'm going to post this. So I haven't even posted number 101 yet. And I already have this. I might just post this next Sunday because I think... Let me look at the calendar. If I post 101 on the 26th, this would go live on the 10th. I don't know. I might be around, I might not. I might be tired from work, who knows. Let's see our time. 1.5 hours. Let's go, baby. Okay, thanks for stopping by.